Here now, and we're ready to go. I'm ready, and I suppose that you are ready.
All right, everybody, Mark Twain's ready to start his presentation. Anybody interested in listening to Mark Twain's presentation, gather around. Mark Twain, he's 175 years old, so we'd like to hear him talk.
All right, Mark. Well, thank you very much. Although I do have to find the difference on my age, I've been characterized as being 175 years old. That is not true. I am 174 years old. You'll have to excuse me. I'm not quite as sharp as I used to be, so I'll need to refer to my notes today. I've been requested by Museum Commissioner Adrian Nestor to say a few words on the new exhibit here at the Angels Camp Museum. It is an exhibit commemorating the historic beginning of Mark Twain's literary career. Now, I understand that Mr. Nestor is an avid golfer. I have never golfed. I don't intend to. I can't understand why you'd want to ruin a good walk in the park, chasing a little ball around with a stick. It's like chopping firewood and getting nothing done. I apologize for digressing. Well, as I said, it's been 144 years since my feet have touched this ground here at Angels Camp. It's been a long journey returning. Not quite sure how it happened this time. I first arrived with Halley's Comet in Florida, Missouri in the year 1835. I spent my boyhood in Hannibal, on the banks of the Mississippi. We played pirates on the islands. We explored in the limestone caves. We floated down the big river on rafts made of logs. But when I was a boy, there was but one permanent ambition myself and my comrades held. That was to be a steamboatman. After serving a spell as an apprentice printer, I eventually made my dream come true. My dream of training and becoming a steamboat pilot on the mighty Mississippi. As a pilot, I collected a handsome salary, intended to invest in the sugar trade one day and to become rich. Before I could fully enjoy that profession, the Civil War broke out in the year 1861. Maritime commerce stopped on the big river. Fresh out of a job, I decided to join the Confederate Rangers. I served for 2 weeks, promptly deserted before battle, and later the Confederacy fell. About that time, my brother Orion, hired on as the first secretary to the newly appointed governor of the Nevada Territory. Oh, that Washoe country out west. It was all the rage. Fabulous discoveries of silver and gold reported daily by Pony Express in St. Joseph, Missouri. Now, since the steamboat business had gone bust, I lit out for the territory with my brother Orion by overland stage. We left St. Joseph, Missouri. We crossed the mighty Platte River. We spanned the vast Great Plains and the prairies, traversed the towering Rockies, and crossed the lonely deserts of the Great Basin. The scenery was delicious, the air intoxicating, the evening suppers around the campfires enchanting. Traveling a distance of 1,700 miles by stagecoach. We arrived in Carson City, Nevada, a new, young, bustling town nestled at the foot of the eastern slope of the Sierra Nevada. Immediately upon arriving,
I will be like that.
I borrowed money from Orion. We needed a grub stake for the claims that we would stake out in Aurora and Unionville. As soon as I got there, I wrote him promptly and borrowed more. I expected prospecting to be easy. I figured to pick up the gold in big pieces, nuggets the size of Easter eggs. I soon found out you had to dig down deep for the gold and the silver. The labor was tedious and boring, and rare was the man who struck it rich. My mining partners and I figured we would stake our claims and make a quick fortune. We would retire forever in the East. We would live in sumptuous mansions, ride in the finest carriages, with all the necessary luxuries. Well, that dream didn't pan out. We lost the claims. We lost our shirts. We failed to complete the necessary assessment work on the claims, and we lost them. We had to forfeit them by law. Those claims became the property of a new mining company named the Wide West, one of the richest mines in Aurora and in the Nevada Territory. Foolishly, we had convinced ourselves foolishly that we would become Comstock kings. After all that effort and the mighty Comstock, I realized that I was just drunk. Well, after failing at gold and silver mining, and after suffering a miserable defeat at timber ranching, I was down on my luck. I was desperate. So I took a job as a news reporter, working for the Territorial Enterprise in Virginia City, Nevada. At the time, the Enterprise was the most widely read newspaper west of the Mississippi. My principal duty was to visit all the Comstock Bonanza mines, take notes, and write up the most convincing lies about their mining stock so they could sell that stock to unwary investors in San Francisco. I soon got the hang of it. I learned that I had quite a talent for telling stretchers and tall tales. I learned how to invent all kinds of news. I told stories about shootings, kidnappings, murders, hangings, social events, politics. I even wrote editorials. Why, if there wasn't enough going on in town, I just reported on what should have been going on, whether it happened or not. After a year or two of this employment, I rose to my position as city editor of the Territorial Enterprise. I took the pen name Mark Twain. It seemed to suit me just fine. It's an old riverboat term, meaning barely safe running and risky water ahead. Some of that water was risky, filled with conflict and controversy. Well, I fired up a newsprint argument with a competing reporter. Most affectionately, I named him the Liar. That reporter sent me a cordial invitation to a nice social gunfight with long Colt pistols on the streets of Virginia City. Well, after 2 or 3 shots, of Comstock whiskey, I thought this was a smashing good idea, so I accepted. The next day, though, I discovered that my opinion had changed. After discussing the matter with a close friend, Dan DeQuill, and my other friend, Steve Gillis, and with much encouragement from the local sheriff's department, I decided to leave Virginia City. So the next morning, I departed by overland stage for San Francisco via Placerville. Steve came with me. But the trouble wasn't over yet. Not long after that, I was jailed in San Francisco for public drunkenness. How dare they? After that, I had to bail Steve out because he clobbered a bartender for picking on some poor innocent chap. Well, our opinion supporting the local Chinese immigrants was very unpopular at that time with the local police. So taking all this together, we thought about it and decided to do the most prudent thing. We skedaddled over here to Jackass Hill at Steve's brother's cabin, only a few miles from here. We held up at the cabin for the winter of 1864-65. We pocket mined there for placer gold. Well, they pocket mined. I mostly smoked my pipe and observed and took notes. If they found some yellow flakes, I shouted encouragement at them. I instructed them to dig deeper for the gold and the silver. As for me, I was mining for nuggets of a different kind. Local folklore. One late rainy evening, after a full day of that infernal pocket mining, we were throwing down a few down at Ben Kuhn's Saloon in Angels Camp, just a few blocks from here. It was that same day that Ben told us the story of Jim Smiley and his jumping frog Daniel. I made this note. C, with his jumping frog, bet a stranger $50. Stranger had no frog, and C got him one. In the meantime, stranger filled C's frog full of shot, and he couldn't jump. The stranger's frog won. I also noted Calaveras possesses some of the grandest natural features that have ever fallen under the contemplation of the human mind. Such are the famous big trees, the Utica gold mine, one of the richest in the world, well, that Angels Camp straight whiskey, the kind of whiskey that will throw a man for a double somersault, limber him up like a boiled macaroni, all before he can set his glass down. Marvelous and incomprehensible is the whiskey of Angels Camp. But I digress. The story went like this. Jim Smiley bet a newcomer to the camp that Daniel could out-jump any frog on the mother lode. The stranger agreed. He agreed to bet Jim, so long as Jim would find him a frog to jump. Jim said, I'll risk $40 that he can out-jump any frog in Calaveras County. The stranger said, well, I don't see no pines about this frog's better than any other frog. Well now, when Jim Smiley looked for another jumper, the stranger secretly poured a spoonful of lead shot down Daniel's belly. When it came time to jump, well, that frog couldn't budge. The stranger won the bet. By the time Smiley realized that Daniel had gained an additional 5 pounds, it was just a little too late. Well, after stealing this story from Ben Kuhn down at the Angel Saloon, I wrote it up as a humorous sketch entitled The Celebrated Jumping Frog of Calaveras County. I sent it to a friend of mine, Artemis Ward in New York. He managed to get it published in the Saturday Post. And the rest, you might say, is, well, it's American history. After leaving the cabin at Jackass Hill in Angels Camp, I went on to report from the Sandwich Islands. I worked for the Sacramento Union. I toured around the world. I met and married my wife, Livy, and started a fine little family in Buffalo, New York, and then later settled in Hartford, Connecticut. Not long after, in the year 1870, I published my first book, The Innocents Abroad. Then in 1872, I published Roughing It, my story about my travels out west, Angels Camp, the Comstock Load, the mighty Comstock. Well, this launched a cascade of books to follow. The Gilded Age, Life on the Mississippi, A Yankee in King Arthur's Court, The Prince and the Pauper, Tom Sawyer, and The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn. All the time I was writing, I continued to prospect for those get-rich-quick schemes, like the Page Typesetter, a colossal failure. Another place I succeeded in losing many thousands was the stock market. I learned that October is a particularly bad month to invest in the stock market. So is November and December, January, February, March, April, and so on and on. Well, I was disappointed with getting rich quick. It was taking too long. So I asked myself, what is the chief end of man? To get rich? If so, in what way and how? Many say dishonestly if we can, honestly if we must. How unfortunate and narrowing a thing it is for a man to have wealth who makes a god out of it instead of making it his servant. Besides, being rich ain't what it's cracked up to be. It's just worry and worry and sweat and sweat and a wishing that you was just dead all the time. These get-rich-quick schemes of our youth, how grand they are and how fragile. The real mother lode is the one found in the human heart. That 24-karat affection shared by loved ones, families and friends, discovered through celebrated holidays and the simplest of times, yielding those cherished moments that are never forgotten. That lonely cup of coffee shared by two sailors at sea, the friendly plate of hot victuals on a cold night around a cheery campfire, children laughing and jumping on the bed, holding hands with a dear, loved soul of 50 years. The squeal of children on Christmas morning when they are the first to see the presents under the tree and declare, "Santa's been here." Yes, these are the moments that make the treasures we keep. These are the riches we take with us. So therefore, let us invest in the love we have for each other. Discover locate and claim the love in your own heart, then share it. That's where you'll strike it rich in this boom and bust, but very brief life we live. I say this, let us all endeavor so to live that when we come to die, even the undertaker will be sorry. I left this earth in 1910 with Halley's Comet. Since then, I've learned much about the meaning of success and riches, about the mother lode of the human heart. The frankest, freest, and most valuable product of the human mind and heart is love. Oh, I'll be thinking about that. Well, now, the hour is growing short. It's time for me to go. My feet are tired, and you are tired. This old steamboat is 174 years out, still running on risky water, and homeward bound. Thank you.